Park Stables. Also want to say a special welcome to members of City Council. Amy Doyle, Russell Stahl, Will Brazington are all here, so appreciate you coming out for this event. Also want to recognize Mrs. Jill Cox, who quite literally, if it wasn't for her, we would not be standing here. Unfortunately, she is not feeling well today and is not with us, but we truly appreciate her contribution in the donation of this property to the City of Greenville at a time when this site was facing some development interest. She purchased it and donated it to the city for inclusion into Cleveland Park to create a passive green space. So we're super appreciative of that effort. We started working on this project in 2012 after Mrs. Cox's donation by creating some concepts for what this space could be, and then taking those concepts into the community for feedback. Working with our neighborhood friends and stakeholders, we arrived at a common theme to create a passive green space that could be enjoyed by all ages. And looking at it now, I think we've arrived at that. And I knew we'd hit the mark during construction when this site was a hot, muddy mess, and there were people walking the concrete path even while the contractors were out here trying to do work and install landscaping. We also, as part of our design, wanted to pay tribute to this site's history in the equestrian community. And with some little touches, you can see on our shelter over there, the weather vane, the cupola, and the signage were all salvaged from the old barn and repurposed in the site. And then we have some pretty cool horseshoe bike racks that also pay tribute to the history of this site. There's several groups that need to be recognized for their investment and involvement in this space. Again, thanks to Mrs. Cox and to City Council for their commitment to making this project a reality. Our friends in Cleveland Forest, Alta Vista, Nicholtown, and the residents on Partridge Lane were all instrumental in coming up with this design and making sure we followed through with the commitment. Our stakeholder partners, Friends of the Reedy River, and their commitment to improving the Reedy and its floodplain. They were a particularly strong asset for this project. They worked with the Duke Water Resources Fund to obtain a $100,000 grant that was used for landscaping and river work on the project. Our design team, led by Jerome Engineering and Earth Design, took our concepts and created construction drawings that featured rain gardens, wildflower beds, and a landscape package that is just about all South Carolina native plant material. And then the Cleveland Park ground crew, the guys and gals are standing in the back, but they work their magic out here every day to make sure that this space is attractive and appealing for the residents and the visitors. So we are appreciative of their work. And now I'd like to invite Councilmember Doyle to come up and say a few words.
Well, good morning, and as you know, we are a city of parks, and we have many neighborhood parks, and they could be small or they could be large, but we need to continue to invest in our parks. Not only are they good for property value, they are very good for your health. And I have seen a little boy learning how to ride his bike this week on the grass, and I see people walking their dogs. I see young, I see old, all different shapes and sizes coming and using this new 400-meter track, which is terrific in addition to Cleveland Park. And I'm so glad that Jeff mentioned our grounds crew. We have 950 employees in the city of Greenville who every day wake up and make that Greenville a terrific place to live. So I want to thank you all in the back for making this a beautiful place. I see you in the morning really early, unlocking the bathroom doors. I see you making sure that there's no trash, and I really appreciate all the work that you do. So please come enjoy the parks. This is your park. We'll continue to invest in our 35 neighborhood parks through our Neighborhood Parks program. And now I'd like to introduce Will Brazington, council member.
Amy, thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see each of you and to be with you. I hope you got your SPF 55 layered on, right? I know you're getting your vitamin D, so I don't want to keep you too long, but I do want to say what a pleasure it is to be with everyone. I particularly want to recognize and thank my sidekick, my 10-year-old daughter Elizabeth, for coming out for this great ribbon cutting ceremony. Each of you are here because you care about the city of Greenville's parks, and you probably care a great deal about Cleveland Park, and I share that same sentiment as you. I live not too far from here, and as I like to kiddingly say, but I say this seriously, a day for me without being in Cleveland Park just doesn't feel right. In fact, this is my second time in Cleveland Park today. Amy mentioned seeing a little boy learn to ride his bike here. My 10-year-old daughter some years ago learned to ride her bike here. It's got a very special spot in our heart, the heart of my family, as it does undoubtedly for each of you. Another side note, while we're here thinking about this wonderful new addition, I think I had the great privilege and good fortune of seeing perhaps the very first person jog around this newly opened sidewalk several weeks ago. I just happened to be a passerby, looked over and said, well, I hadn't seen that before. So it's great, Jeff, and to all the groundskeeping crew, as Amy referenced, thanks for your work and careful planning in making this possible. We have our Alta Vista Neighborhood Association president here, Dorothy Dow. Welcome. Thanks for being here. I want to particularly point out our Neighborhood Association representation because I want to commemorate the origin of this. I think this park space is the perfect intersection of careful planning, a lot of generosity, and collaboration from many community stakeholders. Some 7 years ago, I was carrying the baton that Dorothy Dow currently carries as Alta Vista Neighborhood Association president. I recall at that time when a consortium of local residents from both the Cleveland Forest neighborhood and the Alta Vista neighborhood joined together to talk about a future for this site that was different than one that was being proposed at that time. With Mrs. Jill Cox from Southland Avenue stepping in and exerting great generosity by purchasing this land and subsequently donating it to the city, and then through the collaboration between the aforementioned residents and the city's Parks and Recreation Department planners, we're here some 6 or 7 years later in this great new expansion of our park system in addition to Cleveland Park. So what a wonderful thing with help of partners like, as Jeff mentioned, Friends of the Reedy River and the Duke Water Resources Fund. We wish Jill could be here today. I'd ask each of you to think about her in your minds and your hearts today for her role in this community and her generosity. She will see this at a later occasion, but I would like to share with each of you assembled here this morning this wonderful plaque that will be presented to Jill as continued appreciation on behalf of the city. And you should know, if you don't already, that City Council previously has recognized her with a proclamation due to her role in this park. So thank you again for being here. Appreciate your kind attention and interest in our parks. I'd now like to call on Mr. Jay Anthony, who's former president of the Cleveland Forest Neighborhood Association, who I believe has some remarks to share as well. Jay, would you join us, please? I'm sorry, as I call on Jay, I realize that I have leapfrogged Katie. That gives Katie more time. Well, it gives Katie more time to prep and think about how she's going to follow the high bar that Jay's going to set with his remarks, right? Okay, thanks, Jay.
All right, well, good morning. And since Will kept his jacket on, I feel honor bound to keep mine on as well in this blazing temperature. That's right. Well, my name's Jay Anthony. I'm a resident of Cleveland Forest, and my wife Kristen and I moved into the neighborhood just about 8 years ago, partly because we just fell in love with Cleveland Park. So now we live up the hill. We have 2 young children, Evelyn and James, who are here with us this morning, who are very serious proponents and patrons of the parks. And we are really blessed to live in a community with some wonderful neighbors. And so I'm here this morning to share a few words on their behalf as a representative of the Cleveland Forest Neighborhood Association. And oddly enough, even though our neighborhood is very old and established, we didn't really have a neighborhood association until just a few years ago, when, as Will mentioned, a gentleman voiced the idea of purchasing this property and building an apartment complex on it. And that motivated us to come together as a group, and our efforts were partly selfish because we did want to protect our nice, quiet, historic neighborhood, but that wasn't the only reason for it. A lot of us who live in Cleveland Forest view ourselves as stewards and guardians of Cleveland Park. Being so close to the park, we have a sense of ownership over it. We have a sense of responsibility that we have a duty to sort of ensure its protection and ensure that it prospers. And we really consider it home. And we saw this proposed project for what it was, which was a threat to Cleveland Park. The construction, the traffic, the density,
none of that fit this beautiful meandering park that has been at the heart of Greenville for so many years, that has evolved with the city over time, and particularly with the recent boom in construction, has become sort of a natural oasis in the midst of a thriving, populous town. And so we organized, we got together, we reached out to city leadership, we tried to galvanize the community, we did everything we could to really push back on that effort. And we were quite fortunate that the city leadership was of the same mind and purpose. And so that initial attempt to rezone this property was defeated. But there was a wake-up call for us, because we knew that this was not going to be the only developer to eye this beautiful piece of property here. But we didn't know what to do other than just to sort of sit tight and wait for the next battle and hope for success there too. And then, of course, out of nowhere came Jill Cox to the rescue. And I do hate she's not here this morning to be thanked in person, because as all of you know, Ms. Cox stepped in, purchased the property, and donated it to the city so that it is forever a part of Cleveland Park. And there are a lot of things that a person can do with that kind of money. But Ms. Cox made the decision to do something to benefit her community, something that would last. And I think that people like Jill are people, and the thing that sets Greenville apart from a lot of other cities. They're people who take ownership of our city. They not only accept responsibility to try to preserve the things that we love here, but they actually seek out a way to make a difference. Jill wasn't obligated to help. Nobody asked her to help. Nobody had to. She saw an opportunity to improve the lives of others, and she acted. Parks and Rec studies have shown that people come from all over the county to visit Cleveland Park. And thanks to Ms. Cox and thanks to our city leadership, when they come to this place, instead of seeing a sea of asphalt, they see a meadow. Instead of seeing structures and walls, they find openness. Instead of hearing the din of traffic, they get to hear the sounds of nature. When you come here, you see children racing around on the paths, you see picnic blankets on the lawn, you see families walking dogs, and that's going to be true for generations. And so, on behalf of my neighborhood and on behalf of the whole community, I do want to thank Ms. Cox. And we are incredibly grateful for her vision. I also do want to thank the city leadership for recognizing the importance of this place and standing up for it. And I want to thank the wonderful folks at Parks and Rec, Jeff and his team, for transforming this space into this beautiful park that's going to be enjoyed by everyone. Thank you all.
I don't know if I can truly beat those remarks. So thank you, Jay. I can build off on a lot of great things that you said. Indeed, it is a great day to be in Greenville and here for this celebration of this natural space. My name is Katie Callahan. I've had the great pleasure of serving as president of Friends of the Reedy River for the past year and a half, and as a board member for the past 3 years. And this project has been one of our greatest achievements and our largest grant in partnership with Duke Water Resources Fund and the City of Greenville. So I want to thank all of our partners for what we've accomplished together, because what we built here is not really just for us. It's for the next generation of Greenvillians to come. And I'm very proud of how this looks today. Mrs. Cox, in her wisdom, dedicated this as a proviso for undeveloped space and natural green space. And I woke up here at this park with Channel 7 News this morning at 5 a.m. We were here before the birds woke up, but they did. And we had blue herons flying overhead. And as you sit in this audience, you're seeing dragonflies and pollinators. And it's due to the great team at Earth Design and Jeff's team that we see so many native plants that are a part of nature in this escape from the city that is Cleveland Park. So thank you also to our leadership for making that happen. I want to just hone in on a couple things as we talk about the river, because the river is really going to benefit from this park space and is critical and is the lifeline within Cleveland Park and its entire stretch, as well as paralleling the Swamp Rabbit Trail, which we all use and love. With Duke Water Resources Fund, we were able to help install 2 rain gardens that you see behind us. Rain gardens are basically sunken depressions that capture stormwater runoff, and those plants use the nutrients from rainwater, trap sediment, and let nature play a role in stormwater mitigation. So you're right, Mr. Anthony, you said we have this intense development pressure. These are examples of tools in our toolbox of how to address that development pressure, and they're used so well at this site. So I'd like to think that today is also a celebration of what we can do in other spaces, whether they're our schools, our libraries, county complexes, campuses, commercial campuses, and even our homes, of practices that we can bring home that better protect the Reedy River. I do think that as we watch Greenville grow and evolve and become this super popular tourist attraction, we have one untapped potential that still exists, and that's the improvement of the Reedy River for more outdoor and water-based recreation. And spaces like this get us closer to that goal and that vision of connecting with the river. I'll just leave everyone, I know you're suffering in the heat, with one last comment from Leonardo da Vinci. When you put your hand in a flowing stream, you touch the last that has gone before and the first of what is still to come. And that is the celebration of today and what we built for the next generation. So thank you very much.
And now we'll cut the ribbon. We can get members of council and Katie and Jay.
Jay, bring your kids. It's the only time little kids can hold big scissors. It's kind of a thrill. Oh, Jay, we definitely. Do you want to hold this? Okay. You're in the front. You're in the front. Okay, so you have to go like this. You have to go like this. Okay, can you do it? I believe you.
Wait a second.
Okay.
All right, we cut from the bottom.
Okay.
We go top of it.
All right. Okay.
Maybe jump in here.
Oh, all right.
We'll count us down.
Oh, you want to count us down? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, it's official.